All right, guys. Hey, this is going to be the assembly video for the RSH 12 and the Leon version of the RSH 12. I'll be building the Leon version in this, but they assemble the exact same way. So, they will both still have the spring-loaded hammer and trigger, the fold-out cylinder, all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and get right into it. This is how the kit will come. About that, let me go ahead and just get your parts out here. Try not to make a big mess right now. But so what you'll have is you'll have your main frame, you'll have your cylinder. This is the lower frame. Your grip, and I'm trying a new little setup here, and I don't have my monitor over here where I can see what you guys see through the camera. So I'm going to try my best to stay in shot here, but you got your orange tip, you'll have your trigger, your hammer. This is the little bolt down here. It'll be a spring-loaded bolt for catching in here. Unfortunately on this, couldn't really make the cylinder operate with the hammer and trigger, because on fold-out cylinders like this, if you have any flex at all, because of course they're not metal or steel, when the hand goes to pushing, it doesn't always land back in the spot it should land to properly rotate the cylinder. I got it pretty darn close, but nothing that was repeatable success. And it doesn't help with the shape of the cylinders on these either. And they actually have the cylinder shaped the way they do to make the frame smaller, because of being 50 cal bullets. It's a 5-shot, and the frame they have is shaved on these sides so that it can clear coming into the frame. As it comes in, it rotates in and locks in place. If they made this completely round, I'm assuming they would have had, well, not assuming, I know this frame would have had to been a good 5 millimeters taller than what it is. Very interesting gun, but I can kind of see why they never went into full production of it. But anyways, so we have our hardware. We've got our larger spring, which will be for the handle. We have a socket head, 20 millimeter socket head, which will attach the cylinder to the cylinder arm. The larger spring is going to be for the hammer trigger. The smaller spring the bigger spring is for the hammer. The smaller spring is for the trigger. We have a 1-inch set screw, which on this version, the standard version, this set screw goes in here and bolts the cylinder arm to the frame, and that's its rotational point. On the standard version, it's got a 20 millimeter socket, not 20 millimeter, an M4 8 millimeter socket that holds and gives its swivel point for this version. So that's really the only two differences in the kit, other than a few minor things on this kit. And I didn't glue this on here so I could take it off. We have this little piece that goes down here, where on the Leon version that piece doesn't exist. This has a front sight, but this also has a different style front sight. This one has a rear sight on the Leon that goes on, and on the standard version, the rear sight is built into the actual frame. Those literally are the only differences between those. So for this, the long set screw is going to be what attaches your cylinder arm. You have a shorter set screw. Sometimes these will be black or silver. My supplier was out of the silver ones, but they both function the same way. You have two Phillips head screws one is 6 millimeters long and the other one is 10 millimeters. The 6 millimeter will bolt this little hand, this hand spring, or bolt spring, I'm sorry, into here. So that's where the 6 millimeter will go. The 10 millimeter, when we get to the point and we put the lower frame on, the 10 millimeter Phillips goes into the front of the frame, bolts the front frame on, and your grip screw goes up through the bottom of the grip, goes through the lower frame and screws into the upper frame. So that, well, there we go. So that the big screw and the front screw will attach and screw this completely down. So you can take it back apart if need be. The only thing that'll keep you from taking it back apart is at the end, the little filler panel that goes on to the bottom of the grip. You could put that on with, like, I guess, a two-sided thin sticky tape or something if you really wanted to. But as far as needing to take it really back apart, there's not too much. The hammer and the trigger are extremely thick and solid. And as far as wear points, you could probably operate the hammer and trigger, don't quote me, a couple 100,000 times before you'd ever wear the wear point down where the hammer and trigger connect. But anyways, then you have one dowel pin in here. Now this dowel pin, make sure everything's okay. It is. So this dowel pin is going to be what goes through the hammer and into the body. That's the rotational point for the hammer. And the side cover here, which goes on to the body right here, has a matching hole in it. And that matching hole, once you put the hammer in, well, gives both sides a mounting hole. Let's see. So it's hammer, trigger. Now our spring-loaded bolt down here that just stops the cylinder and catches it in each one of these little grooves. We'll go ahead and just get started here, because this will be, some of the first things that we do. We'll go ahead and take this bolt, and if you notice, there's a slot here in the bottom. This bolt here, getting little fuzzies, just drops into that slot, and if you notice, it goes up and just sets on this little peg in here. So that's kind of its rotational point. It just sets just like that, and it will pop up through the bottom right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our bolt printed spring here, and if you notice, it's got a raised side on one side right there. That side we want to face up towards the head of the screw. We're going to go ahead and put that in and get our little 6 millimeter Phillips. We're going to put that in and just screw that puppy in there. It'll cut its own threads. Just get to the point it's nice and tight. So now, if you notice, we push that down and it's spring loaded. And that printed spring, it's kind of jumping around because I don't have the trigger in yet. That printed spring, that's what it does. Okay. So the next thing we'll go ahead and do is we'll put our hammer in. Now you can do this one of two ways. You can put the hammer in, then wiggle the slide in. To me, or not the slide, the spring. But you can just put the spring into the back of the hammer or drop the spring and it shoots across your table. If you notice down in here, let me see, I gotta get this monitor. There's a hole down in here where this spring will set. You notice it's in that hole. Now what you can do, before we do that, take your dowel pin and push it through your hammer and make sure, it pushes through. One side there might be a little boogie or something you need to knock off. The easiest way to if one side of the hole or something needs to be opened up, is you can take like a Phillips screwdriver and just kind of go back and forth in each side, and it'll knock off anything like that. But so all we're going to do is take our hammer and we're going to slide the spring into the back of the hole and just kind of push the hammer down. Take our dowel pin, push it in, and you're going to kind of wiggle this around a little bit, kind of move the hammer until we find the hole it goes in. I can push it through. There we go. Nope. Hang on. I think I'm getting stuck on the other side of, I think I crammed some stuff in there when I was trying to show you guys how to clean out that hole. But anyways, so hammer goes in, push the hammer over to the side, push the dowel pin all the way in. Now you'll have to hold the hammer in, but you can make sure that your spring is set correctly. All right, so then the side panel needs to go on. But before we glue this side panel on, because once we glue the side panel on, we're not going to get the hammer and spring back out of there. So, but before we do that, I'm just going to set that off to the side, and the hammer will have a tendency to want to pop out. We're not really concerned with it right now. What we want to do is we want to get our 16 millimeter set screw and the correct Allen driver for it. So you notice there's a hole in the side right here. So what I do is I get it started and I look down one direction and make sure that I'm starting at 90 degrees to the body, and then look at another direction and I kind of look back and forth a couple of times and make sure it's 90 degrees. And then I'm going to run this in until it pops through, just comes through, and now back it up till it's even. Now what I'm going to do is take our trigger here, and we need to slide this in up under the hammer, just like this. And it's fine if it sits loose. All we're trying to do right now is get the set screw into the trigger hole. And you can go start tightening it down. If you feel it stop, you just missed the hole. Just move the trigger around a little bit until you get it to the hole. All right. And you want to make sure your bolt is still, the first thing we put in, the bolt, you want to make sure it's still on that rotational point. And now I'm just going to screw this in until it's just a little past flush. You'll kind of feel it bottom out there because it doesn't come through to the side. You don't want to overdo it or you'll literally tear out the side. Okay, so now we can hold our, if you just want to test everything, we're going to kind of pull the trigger forward, simulate the spring that's going to be in here, and just hold a finger on here. And you just want to make sure it cocks and releases. That's all that, we just want to make sure that's all good. So, and I'm still going to wait to do that because I want to go ahead and put our lower grip on. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just glue the side on, because I want to put the cylinder and stuff in next. So the type of glue I use is a CA glue. It's basically a two-part glue, even though people like to get smart ass about it and go, "It's not two-part glue, it's a glue with an activator," whatever. There's two parts, 1 and 2. This is a brand I've been using for a long time, and I finally have been able to carry this on my website. So if you need this, you can add it as an add-in on any of the kit purchases or whatever if you need some. So what I'm going to do here is on the back side, you'll notice there's a notch here and a notch there. That's the only place that we want to put glue. So I'm just going to put a little bit on there and a little bit down in here, kind of get it on the wall. Kind of get it in there, but get it on the walls. And of course, now we want to take this and drop it straight on as we can without getting glue everywhere. Now we can hold it together and test all that, and then just hit it with some activator. And we're going to hold some pressure on it just because we want it to set nice and tight and straight. All right. So there we go. All right. So our trigger's not going to grab yet until we put the lower part of the frame on, because it houses the spring for the trigger. All right. So next, what we want to do real quick is put our cap back on our glue, because I constantly forget to do that. All right. We're going to get our cylinder arm, our cylinder, and the 20 millimeter socket head Allen. Now this will drop down through here, kind of got to wiggle it, and it's just going to pop through just like that. Now what I do is, you have a hole back here, is you can stick this in the hole and it will push in a few threads, just because I made the entrance a little bit larger so that it's easier to start straight. I'll pull this down and I will hold some tension, some pressure downward, because what you want to do is you want to make sure that your screw starts straight. There you go. And just screw this until it starts to get tight. And if you hold this arm, you can't rotate it. What you're going to want to do is just back this out a little bit until it gets to a smooth rotation. Not bad. Maybe just a hair a bit more. There we go. So now we got a nice smooth rotation on that. So all we got to do at this point is take this. It's kind of awkward dropping it in there. There you go. And you just want to set the arm down into the body and get our other Allen head, our Allen wrench, for the long set screw. And so in the front right here, like before, a couple twists, turn it a couple angles, double check you're going in 90 degrees, and just start screwing it in. Be gentle right now, because you want to make sure that you run into the hole of the cylinder. Here we go. It went, first time. That's a first. First time's the first. All right, so on this, we're just going to screw this in until it sets flush with the bottom of that hole. And so now that's in place, that comes out. And on this, you'll notice on the cylinder arm, there's like this little notch right here. Well, there's also a notch in the barrel. And so when you close this, and remember, it's, because it's not round, they've got the cuts for a reason. So when you close this, it's going to kind of rotate in. And then so once this is all together, like if you flip your cylinder out and then you close it, you'll get more in the habit of it, but it'll eventually get to the point that when you close this cylinder, it'll lock. Now that cylinder on this gun, just so everybody knows, on the real one, the cylinder does not spin the normal way that a revolver does. They have it spinning the opposite direction. Now, trying to think of how to explain this. So the notches on the barrel here, if one side has like a little cutout on it, you can go in, but you can't rotate it back this way. It will only rotate one direction. And because of the way that the Leon version that has these flutes in here, it makes it even more awkward, because this version is a lot easier to hit each one of those spots. But because of the flutes, it has a tendency to want to catch one side of the flute, click again, then click over to there. But anyways, it works great. All right, so what we're going to do now, before we glue the barrel on and everything, we're going to go ahead and glue in the front and rear sight. Well, the rear sight onto the frame, And there's just a groove here. Sight gets glued in there. Pretty straightforward on that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get me a little glue here, and come on. I need to clear that hole out a little bit. And I'm going to run. Yeah, boy, I need to clear that out. Jeez. Just a little bit glue on both of the edges, top edges. So when I set this on here, it smears glue down and out a little bit. Gives for the best contact. Okay. So there's that. Now our front sight. You'll know if you have it on right or not, because if you put this sight on backwards, it sticks out forward, which is not what you don't, it shouldn't stick out at all. It should set right in its little groove right there. A lot of people ask me why I make the sights separate, because that way you can paint them separate, and when you glue them together, it preserves the parts line where the two parts go together, just kind of like what the real one does. It's on all the models. I try to make them all separate, and so just put a little dab of glue, which I don't even know if I got enough on there. It's hard to see what I'm doing and make sure you guys can see. But anyways, so there's that. Now what we can do, we'll go ahead and we can glue the barrel on. Just go ahead and, before you put glue, test fit it. If you see this notch, there's a notch down here. We can slide it together and test fit and make sure it fits, straight and up against the body, flush like it should. All right, so now I'm just gonna, we don't want to get overly crazy with the glue, but we want to make sure that we, have enough to adhere the barrel on quite well. So I'm going to put glue along the bottom and along the inside wall. And then I'm going to come down here and make sure I put some glue down in that channel and on there. And make sure I don't get it on my cylinder arm doing this. And I am going to hold it this way. Only thing y'all are missing is watching glue dry. It's just easier for me to hold pressure against the table. And of course, wipe any off if you get it anywhere. All right, so now we're going to want to take our lower frame and our spring here. Now, the way springs are wound, they're wound counterclockwise. So if you put it to this hole and spin counterclockwise, it will shrink the entrance of the spring real quickly for it to pop in. If you try to go clockwise when you do it, that'll catch and expands the bottom of the spring, which, of course, then it won't go in the hole properly. So now what we're going to do is, if you notice there's a hole here in the bottom of the spring, or in the trigger, we're going to run that through there, and we're going to make sure that that sets on there. And now I'm just going to hold it together like this. I'm going to put my front spring in. Here we go. We're going to screw this in until it bottoms out and gets tight. There we go. Now we're going to take our grip and push that through, and if you see, grip, it comes out of there. So if we just take that, slide that up on there, and this is a little bit of a long-winded screw, but it goes in the body nice and far. There we go. And so at this point, we got our hammer and trigger. We've got our cylinder that flips out. That's a big old gun. I'm sure you guys have already seen it in the hard holster, which Michael with Fan Fiction Props has the hard holster that fits this on his holster belt rig set that he's making. But other than that, and I'm not going to do this right now because I want to take this back apart and paint it. But then once you're done, now if you try to put this in and it doesn't fit, it's because it's different shapes on the front and back. That'll get glued in there. That's what I was saying at the beginning of this video. If you want to do like the thin double-sided tape in here, so that you can, if you ever want to or need to, you can pop this off and take that screw out. And like this whole thing will disassemble right now, except for, of course, the barrel to the frame and like the front and rear sights and this door. But other than that, you could take this all back apart if you wanted to. But like I said, I'm not going to glue mine on right now because I want to take this back apart and paint it. But that's what the finished part looks like on there. And then again, don't forget your orange tip. That is your responsibility, that when you're done with your kit, by law, you have to put that on there. And that's all I have to say about that. That's all I got to say about that. But anyways, there it is. I hope you guys enjoy it. We've got the Leon version, and we've got the normal standard RSH 12 versions. But if you guys have any questions or anything, just let me know. I'm also making the axe, his new sidearm, the new SIG and stuff. So all that in the next week or so should be out. But if you guys have any questions or comments or whatever, just leave them down below or go to the website, shoot me an email. I always love to hear back from you guys, especially when you guys buy these and you build them. Send me pictures. I love seeing them finished. But yeah, guys, I appreciate it. Have a good one.